The profound impact of recent widespread cyber surveillance revelations has prompted action.
That America is not interested in spying on ordinary people. Our intelligence is focused above all on finding the information that's necessary to protect our people and, in many cases, protect our allies.
Internet, which is the greatest invention of our time, of our generation, the most important thing we will be leaving for future generations, which is changing the world, also turned out to be pretty much the perfect tool for governments to monitor citizens.
Spying online is more sophisticated than ever before. Governments are even targeting their adversaries with powerful software for sabotage.
It was developed to specifically attack a nuclear facility in Iran, to infect the systems which control the centrifuges, which enrich uranium, spin them out of control and explode.
The Bahraini government is being accused of apparently using surveillance on those who oppose its rule.
We are being watched and monitored online and offline. There are CCTV cameras everywhere. We know that the internet is being tracked. The internet websites are censored, so they watch what you say and watch what you do.
Yet the firms which openly create this powerful software say they conduct checks on their potential buyers.
If we're not comfortable, frankly, there is enough demand for the software that we don't have to sell to people that we're not, comfortable selling to, and we don't. And there have certainly been cases where we have declined the opportunity to make a sale because we're just not comfortable with what might happen if we did.
So, in the light of the myriad of accusations engulfing various nations over cyber spying, IB Times UK has decided to hold a magnifying glass up to the world of state-sponsored surveillance. High-profile leaks of top-secret classified information have not only left the American president embarrassed, but also concerning thousands of people across the globe.
It's right to ask questions about surveillance, particularly as technology is reshaping every aspect of our lives.
This man, Edward Snowden, blew the lid off a whole new scandal: the large-scale mining of ordinary citizens' internet and phone data.
The documents that Edward Snowden leaked show that PRISM was a system that gave the NSA, the National Security Agency in the US, direct access to the information stored on servers for Apple, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Twitter, 9 major US tech companies. Now, these companies have denied that they know anything about such a system, but the documents are there, they've been shown online. And it's hugely significant because it means that the US government have to face up to admitting that this is what they're doing.
One of the world's top security experts told us we shouldn't be worried about what we're saying or doing online. We rather should be outraged about the PRISM revelations.
This is not what we built the internet for. Internet, which is the greatest invention of our time, of our generation, the most important thing we will be leaving for future generations, which is changing the world, also turned out to be pretty much the perfect tool for governments to monitor citizens. And even worse, it's not governments monitoring their citizens. It's one government monitoring the rest of the world. Because United States intelligence has full legal right to monitor what foreigners are doing when they use US-based services. And that doesn't sound too bad until you realize that I'm a foreigner and you're a foreigner and 96% of the planet are foreigners. And we all use US-based services all the time. We are doing this interview right now over Skype, which used to be a European product, which used to be outside of US intelligence hands. It is now part of Microsoft. It is now part of PRISM. And if we wouldn't be using Skype, at the very least we would be running Windows or OS X or Android or Windows Phone or using Chrome, Firefox, Safari, IE, or storing our files on iCloud, Amazon, SkyDrive, Dropbox. It's actually very, very hard to avoid using US-based services.
Snowden is currently AWOL, having been granted asylum by Venezuela, and his revelations also unearthed that it wasn't just the general public who are affected by cyber surveillance. The Cold War narrative prevails, it seems.
Stuxnet, I guess, is probably the starting point for what we know now as the modern kind of age of cyber espionage and cyber sabotage. It was a complex computer virus or malware which was developed jointly by the US government and Israel under the US government's Olympic Games, top secret Olympic Games program, which was started by President Bush, continued and expanded by President Obama. It was developed to specifically attack a nuclear facility in Iran to infect the systems which control the centrifuges, which enrich uranium, spin them out of control and explode. So it was the first it was cyber sabotage because it actually created physical damage in the real world using computer program, which was unbelievable. It got into the wild, people discovered it and people found out about it, which they were never meant to do. But it's, as I said, it's really essentially the beginning of what we call modern cyber espionage and cyber sabotage.
How did it come to light that we now know it was the US and Israel working together?
It came to light through a series of reports by journalists in the US who spoke to senior military officials. The US or the Israel government have never officially on the record said that this is the case, but Edward Snowden, who has leaked NSA documents just last week, confirmed that the US was behind Stuxnet. So while there's no official report, it is all indicators point to this being the case.
Human rights campaigners in more oppressive states claim that they're also being watched online. Accusations made against Bahrain's human rights are well documented.
Well, I've been in Bahrain since 2009, and since the protests began and I became to be more public in my role in the protest movement and supporting protesters, at least in delivering their message and in carrying out digital safety precautions, knowing how the government will target them, I then found myself receiving very suspicious emails. Immediately I sent them to security experts who know more about these things than I do, and after a 2-month investigation they came to conclude that this was a very sophisticated surveillance software called Finfisher, and they also found out which company actually manufactures and produces the software. It's a British-German company called Gamma International.
A London-based charity which is concerned about Dr. Shahabi's safety and the sale of this software in particular has now filed a complaint against British HM Revenue and Customs.
We recently filed for judicial review of HMRC's refusal to disclose any information to us on whether or not they're investigating a company called Gamma International. Gamma International is a UK company that has developed and is selling a product called Finfisher. Finfisher is malicious software that basically once it's installed on your computer or your mobile phone, your every movement online can be tracked. We think it's important that this technology cannot be exported to any country, because if it is exported to an oppressive regime, it may be used to target human rights activists, journalists, political opposition members, etc.
The outcome of that review is yet to be seen. Gamma International isn't the only firm which creates and sells highly complex surveillance software. They say they have clear guidelines. IB Times UK spoke to Hacking Team, who highlighted their guidelines to try and prevent misuse as far as possible.
We review all of the blacklists that are out there from the EU and the United States and the NATO and the United Nations and other organizations of that kind, and we don't sell to those countries who are blacklisted there. So we also take a great deal of care to sort of look at the record of the potential client before we make the sale. And if we're not comfortable, frankly, there is enough demand for the software that we don't have to sell to people that we're not comfortable selling to, and we don't. And there have certainly been cases where we have declined the opportunity to make a sale because we're just not comfortable with what might happen if we did. To simply say, well, stop selling this stuff, eliminate it from the marketplace, poses an even greater risk. The risk that very serious bad people would be able to do their business more efficiently to the risk of assault.
Dr. Shahabi says she's been monitored in Bahrain. As far as she's concerned, that's not enough.
These companies do not want to be held responsible for the way that the software is being used, but the bottom line is that they are responsible. It's like supplying people, criminals with guns. It's to say, we know they're criminals, but it's not our fault if they use our guns in the wrong way or end up killing people. We're saying, if you know that these guns will be used to murder people, why supply them in the first place?
So we are afraid that if this technology keeps on being exported to such regimes, that this will have a chilling effect on not only the privacy of human rights activists and journalists and political opposition members, but also on their freedom of expression and freedom of assembly. We are going to meet with representatives of Gamma International at the mediation process that follows on the OECD complaint that we filed against Gamma International. So that will be our first instance.
Ironically, the sale of such cyber surveillance software currently doesn't seem to be subject to external checks or regulation.
It's clearly a problem in many of the nations where there's no democracy, and governments are grossly overusing this to hunt down activists and people who want to change the government or change how these nations work overall. These kind of tools should be regulated much more closely. They should be especially regulated regarding their export. And there is already some sort of regulation in place, but I think there's much more to be done. These tools should be compared to weapons in many cases, or at least to spy gear or monitoring gear.
Security experts like Mikko Hyppönen and human rights campaigners might get their wish. President Obama recently announced various plans to create greater transparency of the whole issue.
I'm tasking this independent group to step back and review our capabilities, particularly our surveillance technologies. And they'll consider how we can maintain the trust of the people, how we can make sure that there absolutely is no abuse in terms of how these surveillance technologies are used. Ask how surveillance impacts our foreign policy, particularly in an age when more and more information is becoming public. And they will provide an interim report in 60 days and a final report by the end of this year so that we can move forward with a better understanding of how these programs impact our security, our privacy, and our foreign policy.
We guess the leader of the free world is hoping that other countries might sit up, take note and change their ways, though it's difficult to believe that such a murky world could become any clearer.